All right, and we're back on the program. It's Gerald Glassford coming right back at you here with a Pop Culture Cosmos. And of course, we're also live on Facebook out there for you. Just wanted to go ahead and give you an update on what's going on because for us at Pop Culture Cosmos, we like to give everybody an update what's going on in the world of NASCAR because NASCAR, believe it or not, with their truncated schedule, have finally reached their playoff format. And they do have their playoff grid set with the drivers. I'm showing now on Facebook Live right now to everyone out there, starting with Kevin Harvick all the way down to Matt Di Benedetto. Just a quality field. I think there's a little bit of a surprise here and there, but for the most part, it looks like a quality field. Jimmy Johnson in his final full year of NASCAR racing, unfortunately didn't make the field. I know a lot of people are upset about that, but it does look like a quality field going forward. And here today to talk to me about the NASCAR playoffs. I was about to say NBA playoffs because I'm covering it every day for Lakers Fast Break, but NASCAR playoffs is my good friend, Mr. Marcus De La Garza. You know he's our NASCAR expert. We actually do so much for, as far as in regards with him with NASCAR, that we even have that promo as we come in and out of break. So I know that we put that music together just for him. It's Marcus De La Garza. And Marcus, thanks for coming back on the show, my friend. Playoff time.
It's playoffs, baby. I'm so excited right now. I just want to say, thank you to you and the Pop Culture Cosmos family for bringing me back again to talk about NASCAR. This is one of my favorite things to talk about, and it's a fun time of year for me right now.
It is. It is. It's a great time. I mean, you and I, before the show, we were going on my usual rants about how I would structure the playoffs differently, but I am for this year. I'm going to give NASCAR a pass because of what's going on with the coronavirus. So I think I have to. I think I have to be nice. But I want to ask you first off, before we get into the playoffs itself, this truncated season that NASCAR went through and with the races during the week and how they handled it. I want to hear from you as a fan's thought. How did they handle this coronavirus and how do you think they handled the season so far?
It's to be the first professional sport to come back to things, and I think a lot of people have overlooked that fact. When you hear people say, "Oh, the first professional sport back was X, Y, or Z," a lot of people leave NASCAR out of the mix, but they were the first one back technically, I think, and I was a fan of the truncated season to a certain extent. Like, I was happy with what they did with qualifying and practice and everything, getting rid of that and just showing up at the racetrack and racing. It speaks volumes to what those teams have as far as simulations go and their notes and all their setup history and everything like that. To be able to unload and have a very, very, very competitive car, all of them, the entire field. So I enjoyed the shortened season. I think they should have done a better job pushing some of the marketing, though. They had some Wednesday night races that went under marketed. The Thursday night Bristol race under marketed. You had captive audiences that I think if you would have just ran some more commercials on different stations or just more commercials generally, you would have had more viewers. But they did capitalize throughout the season on chance to grab viewership, to make new fans, to bring new people into the sport. And I think they did a wonderful job at that. And we've done a great job of clearing out some of the issues that we've had over the last 5-7 years, over the last 20-30 years, in the history of the sport. So don't want to get too far into the social issues, but it's one of those things. I'm very proud of the steps they've made this year, and I think there's a lot of steps to be made, but they're moving in the right direction. So
they are moving in the right direction. There's still, like you said, a long way to go. As I told you, I covered the NBA daily and at the Lakers Fast Break, and I see, the progress and I see the change going on there. I would like to see it faster going in a sport such as NASCAR, but it's in the right direction. But I will say it's a slower pace, but I will say it's going at a pace that I think that could get better, but still. It's in the right direction. I think NASCAR realizes that. I think NASCAR knows that. And I think NASCAR in the future will start taking serious steps to develop a platform where you see a more diverse starting field in the years to come. Not now, maybe even not next year, but 5, 10, 15 years down the line, it will be a lot different than what it is today.
Yeah, and I mean, even since I've come into watching the sport, I feel like we've grown a lot. Just even having Daniel Suarez, I'm of Hispanic descent, and so just having Suarez in the field and having somebody from Monterrey, Mexico, has made a big, jump for me. But I would like to see us make more pushes to get more, to develop more drivers, right? We've got this possibility to start opening the sport up a ton. We've got a lot of new sponsors coming in. You look at what Beats is doing, what Cash App's doing. We've got a lot of opportunities here, and I guess that's where I probably should leave that is opportunity. We have opportunity to be better, and I think we're pushing in the right direction. But like you said, we've got to keep pushing.
Absolutely. We got to keep pushing indeed. Once again, I'm with Marcus De La Garza. He is our NASCAR expert. Speedy man that he is, he follows the fastest sport out there. So I want to ask you this. We head into the playoffs this weekend, starting in, well, the Lady in Black, Darlington. And before we put our own Darlington stripe on the turn, let me go ahead and hear your thoughts going forward on, well, it looks like from almost like as a repeat of our beginning of our talk earlier this year when it came to NASCAR and how it starts with Kevin Harvick, almost ends with Denny Hamlin. But again, there's still some players involved, but my gosh, man, Kevin Harvick has dominated for most of the season. I want to hear your thoughts on who you think might come into the fray. Maybe, like Denny Hamlin, I would say is a strong favorite as well. But is there anyone that can really consistently challenge for those top spots outside of those two?
Yeah, so I took a minute to kind of look back at my notes from last year when we talked about this, and I made a push for Keselowski as the dark horse last season to maybe just show up out of nowhere and win the championship. And as much as I want to do that again this year because I think there's a possibility he does, I'm looking more a little bit further down the list. You're looking at Kyle Busch or I'm looking at Kyle Busch, and believe it or not, Eric Almirola. It sounds like him and his team have really come together down the stretch here. They're finding speed where they need to find it. They're doing a great job unloading at the track and coming fast, and they're doing a great job on race day of making the in-race adjustments to move up through the field. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see Almirola, show up, I don't know, great at Vegas or Talladega. I mean, he's won at Talladega before. I wouldn't put it past him to win again at Talladega. He's got to make it there first. I understand that, but I think, Darlington, Richmond, Bristol, from what I heard on his media center session earlier today, he was pretty positive on his outlook about this. And we know that they're not going to, downplay, and they're not going to, act like they're out of it, right? Like they're all going to show up with the energy that they're going to win the championship, whether you're De Benedetto in 16th or Harvick in first. But, there is a weird energy that he had to his media session today, and it was good. I really felt like that was a very positive energy. Almirola is on my list. William Byron getting warm. I'm not going to say hot because that's Daytona is kind of luck at the end of the day, right?
It is true.
He's getting warm at the right time, right? So getting warm coming into Darlington, Richmond, Bristol. I can't think historically how well he's done at Bristol, but I think he's done a little bit in like 10th to 15th place historically. We can fact check that one in a few minutes though. But honestly, I'm putting my money on Almirola this year as my my underdog driver.
When it comes to Kyle Busch, though, I just don't see him as strong as he was at this point last year. Obviously, he ended up just having a fantastic playoff run, and there's a very good possibility of him doing that this year, especially because Vegas is on the list of tracks that are part of this playoffs, and of course, he's a Vegas guy. But I'm just not into seeing the kind of consistency this year that I saw last year from Kyle Busch.
So, and I'm kind of with you there, and it's interesting. So I got to listen to his media session today as well. I only got to listen to him, Eric Almirola, and Denny Hamlin, so the three of them. But listening to Kyle Busch, he was talking about how he was really excited for round 1 and 3. He felt like those are very strong tracks for him. And let's be honest, he's swept at Bristol. What was that? Not last year, the year before. So this is a man who knows how to win at that track. So I wouldn't put it past Kyle Busch to win at least one of these races in the first round. I know he hasn't won a race in 2020 yet, but don't put it put it past him to win one here in the playoffs and sneak into the second round. And then from there, it's just a matter of luck, right? We know that he runs well at Vegas, and if he could sneak another win in right there, and get back-to-backs, you're in a really good position, and that's where it becomes a little bit of an upset party there, right? So, with Kansas, Texas, and Martinsville as the third round there, he felt confident in all three of those, and so it's just can Kyle Busch wreck the party for somebody else here? And I think that somebody else might be Logano this time around.
So you're throwing a lot of somewhat familiar names.
Yeah.
One that you did pose out there is Aric Almirola, and unfortunately, no Matt Di Benedetto this time. He may be too far off the list this time. He's just barely hanging on, and unless everything goes right, he won't be able to make a big factor. But one name that go ahead.
I was going to say, I love that guy. Great driver, wears his heart on his sleeve, and I think he's done a great job for the Wood Brothers. It's a shame that I think Chevy's got too much talent in the pipe for him to remain in the 21. But we can talk silly season later. I don't know if he's going to get to stay there. I hope he does, but we'll talk silly season later.
When this talks.
Yeah.
The money talks. You gotta listen, and it's just the driver walks. But I will say this: one name that you didn't say that I think is going to be my dark horse, because right now I think it's either in the hands of Harvick or Hamlin, to be honest with you. I think if you deviate from those two, I'm here in Vegas, I see the NASCAR odds every day. I know where they're leaning, and I know the type of season that Harvick has had, especially. I mean, if he's not been winning, he's been out in front in almost every race.
Yep.
I want to say Chase Elliott. Chase Elliott there is a dark horse. He had a pretty strong season, and he's not too far down on the list. I think right now going in, he is 5th. So I see him as someone that can compete to the title if he gets off to a good start.
And I totally agree, but I guess I don't understand labeling him the dark horse here, because even though he's on the outside looking in, I think he's got a lot of time, and he's got 2 great tracks coming up. We know he's a decent plate track driver. We know he likes to win at road courses. So if he can make it through to the second round, he might be able to kick on into the third round as well. I think the points lead he has right now, if he can just roll out some top 5 finishes here for the next 3 races, he's fine. He'll get in there, because I have a feeling Keselowski or Logano is going to push it too hard.
Gee, what are the odds of that happening?
Sorry.
Yeah. So I've seen, but Chase Elliott to me is that type of very good driver, like you're saying, that top 5 finisher. You don't always see him at the top, but you see him in the getting the 3rds, the 4ths, the 5ths, that get him in that position to go ahead and move on into the next round and into the next round. And that's all you need to do, is just get to the next round until that final round where you have a chance to go for the win. So I see him as someone that is a dark horse, because everybody has stopped talking about him and his successful season so far. But I see him as someone that can make a big imprint if he gets off to a decent start. That's all he needs. It's just to keep on going with his successful season so far.
Yeah, and it's funny. I feel like Chase kind of gets a little bit stronger in the playoff run here. So it's hard for me to call him an underdog right now. I have a feeling he might end up in the championship for sure. But I don't want to make any guarantees right now. I want to say for sure Harvick and Hamlin are there, but if you get 3 winners in the third round, hey.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, when all is said and done, before I ask you finally for your favorite, because I'm going to go with Kevin Harvick. Gee, that's a stretch. Before I ask you for your final winner out of this, there's 2 more individuals that are also being talked about who had a very good season in this, I should say, truncated season per se, and that was Blaney. Also as well, you're talking about Martin Truex Jr. and Dave Blaney. So I want to hear your thoughts on both those guys, what they can bring to the table at playoff time, especially Dave Blaney, who has skyrocketed into what I think is to be one of the top drivers in NASCAR. When people thought of him at a certain level, he now has a ride which has gotten him to, I think, more closer to his talents.
So you're thinking of his father. It's actually Ryan, not Dave.
Ryan Blaney. Right, see, I got that. Ryan Blaney. That's right.
It's a,
Ryan Blaney. I got just like I said, Dave Blaney on the mind there. Ryan Blaney, but
it's okay.
Ryan Blaney.
I did it recently. We were in Charlotte, and I was talking about Dave Blaney, and they're like, "You mean Ryan?" Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So Ryan Blaney is someone again who has done such a tremendous job as far as a young driver, but it's now got a ride that has really got him involved. And you know, in NASCAR, having the ride, no matter how good you are as a driver, having the ride and the equipment and the team behind you is sometimes more than half the battle.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, I do want to say, so I don't know if you remember back in the day when I was running the Tripod Sports podcast, we would choose a NASCAR driver at the beginning of every season. I've kept that tradition going. Blaney's actually my driver this year. So I'm cautiously, hoping and praying that we make it, pretty far in the playoffs here, but I don't want to get my heart broken. I'm trying to be a realist here. But he has done an outstanding job in the 12 car. I think when he jumped from the 21 at the Wood Brothers, who has an alliance with Penske, when he jumped from the 21 to the 12, his stock just straight up, man. It's been outstanding to watch him develop in a Cup car that's a top level Cup car, and especially after they did the crew chief shuffle at Penske this offseason. I think that's something that you'll start seeing a lot of the big teams start working into their plans over every 3-4 years or something, is you start watching these crew chief changes happen. And it's great that a lot of these drivers feel comfortable with their crew chief. And we saw Jimmy and Chad work together for how many years, right, before they finally split up. But there's something to be said about bouncing some of this talent around, right? If you can move a crew chief over after 3 or 4 years and expose them to a driver who might be doing something slightly different, he might come up with a solution that makes your shop the winning shop because he's been able to see it 2 different ways or something. So,
but having a fresh voice counts as well.
It does. And so, it's just, I don't know where to go with that one, Gerald. It's interesting. I think that Blaney is in a wonderful position to grow, and I think that when Brad decides he's done with the sport, whether that's done with the sport or done with Penske, we'll see a few more resources flow to that 12 team, and especially when you kind of start realizing that the 22 and the 12 are the two moving forward from here. We'll start to see a lot of the resources flow over to those 2 teams.
And that's the thing that you're saying as far as the Wood Brothers is concerned. It seems to be a stepping stone type of deal where you now see it with Ryan Blaney, and now you'll see it, I'm assuming, with Matt DiBenedetto come next year, or at least in the next 2 years. You see him moving up into a top team because there are these teams like Wood Brothers, Petty. There's about 5 or 6 teams that are good teams on any given day. They could be competitive teams, but they just don't have enough funds. They don't have enough support. They don't have enough of development. They just don't have enough of the actual resources involved to get you to that next level.
Yeah, and listening to Larry Mack this morning talk about how that sponsorship money can make the difference. I didn't realize that some of these teams are relying on that extra $5,000-$10,000 to get that part that they need to go from a 30th place car to a 25th place car or something. It's outrageous to me that the cost has become so prohibitive, and you're so reliant on these sponsorship dollars to offset the cost that you're incurring. I understand it's a business, but at the end of the day, we're racing, guys. Like, we can't find a way to simplify this process a little bit.
Well, it's also the fact that you see all these teams are competitive at a Talladega and a Daytona, a super speedway, but where they're not competitive, and you see the difference between the haves and the have-nots, is on the Las Vegas, the Kansas, the other tracks that they are. And that's where the difference, that's where that gap happens. It doesn't happen at Daytona and Talladega. It happens at Kansas and Dover, and it happens at those tracks because that's where the extra money for development goes into that the have-nots don't have.
Well, and it really emphasizes the fact that we've been on these mile-and-a-half tracks for too long, I guess. If all these big teams have been able to really perfect their craft to a certain extent where they're that much better than everybody else on the mile-and-a-half tracks, but it becomes a even field when you're at the short tracks or if you're at the plate tracks. I mean, it really shows that we've been on these 1.5-mile tracks for too long, I think.
Which is why I propose that every race be split up, half the season at Talladega, half the season at Daytona, to make it a whole even playing field. Crashes all the time, but there would be like surprise winners almost every other race. God, that would be great.
I'm trying to just get us back to short tracks. I don't think I understood the value of not the entertainment value and the display of skill that happens at some of these short tracks, right?
Oh, I don't disagree with you on that. I'm just saying if you're talking about 43 teams out there that you want out there and each of them to have a chance, that's the only way to do it because they're on the tracks that you're describing, these other smaller teams or these mid-tier teams don't have a chance. They just don't have a chance because they can't put the kind of money in development that these larger teams do, and that's where the separation is. It isn't at Daytona and Talladega. It's there, and if NASCAR ever wants to even the playing field, then they're going to have to change the tracks in order to do so. But you and I both know they'll never do that because there's so many good tracks out there. Like you said, short tracks, 1.5-mile tracks, 2-mile tracks. There's so many different tracks out there that are deserving of this type of racing that it is going to be what it is, at least for quite some time, as long as there's not an really even way to do it. I mean, NASCAR tries to even the playing field, but you and I both know better.
Yeah. It's definitely interesting, and I'll be interested to see kind of what goes on moving forward. I know we're trying to add Nashville back as a track, and I think is that one you're familiar with, Joe?
I remember it. Yeah, I have distant memories of Nashville as a track, but I'd like to see other tracks put in the fray. I'd like to see more road tracks. I'd like to see something like Riverside put it. I know Sonoma was a great track for a long time, for the longest time. I'd love to see it spiced up. I know Watkins Glen, they sprinkled that in and whatnot, but I'd love to see other tracks that are around the country that you could say, you know what, that would be a good place to do it. I'd love to see that incorporated, except the same tracks over and over and over.
Yeah, and that's there's an interesting discussion. I had to step away and go into a meeting after those three guys I heard earlier, but they were talking about how NASCAR was pushing more towards like the street stock racing at one point in time, and the discussion of bringing that back would be a very interesting way of building some new courses, but not technically building new racetracks, right? If you could roll into downtown St. Pete after IndyCars, here. And go race some NASCARs out on the road course there. Or the street course there. That'd be interesting, wouldn't it?
Run the strip again, like the old days, long time ago, as far as the Las Vegas Grand Prix is. Run it down here on the strip. I'd love to see that. Just them flashing by. I mean, I understand it not too long ago that they used to do it just before Las Vegas. They used to go ahead and run the cars, parade them down the strip, but actually have that race once again on the strip. That would be kind of fun because they did before in the past, a long time ago.
Yeah, I think so. This year, I always forget to remind you, you're gonna have to go down there when they get into town this year because they actually still do the parade. I know they do the hauler parade, and then for the championship banquet, they've been doing an actual car parade where everybody rolls up in their car and does burnouts on the strip, and
then they go down to Fremont Street and all that. Absolutely.
Yeah, you might have to get some video of that for us this year, Gerald.
I might, but I don't know. It's kind of risky. If you've seen the strip lately that I have, a lot of people are not using the same precautions that they should be. But again, that's another direction I don't want to really go into right now.
Yeah. I live in Florida.
If you saw what I saw 2 weeks ago here on the strip, actually, there'd be a lot of people having a heart attack right now. But again, need I digress? I mean, because just people come out the woodworks and they just don't care.
Yeah.
Again, let's not go into that. But still, before we head on out, my friend, I wanted to ask you this. We've got the playoffs coming out starting this weekend at Darlington. Again, I did the impossible stretch. Okay, actually, it wasn't. Not being facetious here, of choosing Kevin Harvick as my favorite to win it all because I think it's just his year. It just seems like it. So I want to go ahead and put you on the spot, my man, as our NASCAR expert. Who do you have?
Denny Hamlin.
Oh, there you go. Again,
And I'm not just being contrarian. I'm not doing an opposite pit strategy here. I really think he's been fantastic all year long. He's been hot lately, and it's really been fun to watch him. I wasn't a Denny Hamlin fan really until that the Daytona 500 win when he won for JD Gibbs dedicated his win to JD, and so that was interesting. I thought that was a lot of character that he showed there, and so I've really kind of become a fan over the last little bit of time here, and I think he's really trending the right direction right now. The way he was talking about his team today, I didn't get to hear Harvick, but God, there's something to be said about somebody that just feels really confident. And he did, allow for the exception there. He said, we could get 3 winners in the third round that have never, that we didn't expect to have a win, and I get bumped out, and it's just Kevin, and so he's understanding that he still has to work hard. And the way he was talking about it, he was talking about he needs to be putting in 60-hour weeks, 65-hour weeks right now, just prepping and getting ready. So
again, Denny Helms also had a great year, and it wouldn't be such a stretch at all. So we're not actually going out on a limb when you choose Denny and I choose Kevin. So I mean, it's not a stretch at all. I mean, these are 1 and 2 as far as in Vegas are concerned, as far as the favorites. So it is going to be very interesting to see. The races are upcoming, starting again at Darlington, going to Richmond, going to Bristol. Second round, Vegas, Talladega, and Charlotte. Third round is Kansas, Texas, and Martinsville. And, of course, the championship. Not happening at Homestead this year, which I'm kind of liking, but it's happening in Phoenix. So we'll see what happens with NASCAR playoffs. My friend, it's been great talking to you about the NASCAR playoffs, but before we head on out, I want to give you the final word. So please, the floor is yours. What do you have left to say before we head on out?
Well, I just want to say thank you again, Gerald. Thanks to you and the Pop Culture Cosmos family for bringing me back again. I really do enjoy discussing this, and everybody can reach out to me. I am Castle FPV on Instagram and Twitter. FPV is first person view, so like all my drone stuff that I do is I haven't been posting a lot lately, but you're going to be seeing a ton here soon. I've been rebuilding some drones here, and I'm looking across my workbench, and I'm pretty excited. I'm going to be back up in the air next week. We got a lot of videos coming, but other than that, man, I'm building websites and looking for more of a contract gig right now. I'm loving working at home. It's been a lot of fun.
I know as someone who does work from home as well, it's a great pleasure to do so, and to be able to spend more time with the family because of it. I truly treasure it as well. So, my friend, it's been great talking to you. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, it's one of those things I think I've undervalued for years, is how much I would have enjoyed working at home. And now that I've kind of been forced into it, I've really loved it. So
I don't blame you a bit. Once again, it's Marcus De La Garza here to preview the NASCAR playoffs. If you have any questions for him, he just told you his Instagram, but you can also reach him through us at Pop Culture Cosmos. My friend, it's been great talking as always. Looking to get you back on the show for anything NASCAR or pop culture related right here at the Pop Culture Cosmos.